what you expect, nigga, switch perspectives. You know she got objectives, no one in trying to lecture. Don't let that shit affect you, just let the bros protect you. In the end, flip the script, she must be glad she met you. Yeah. See, now I'm feeling masculine.
Welcome to Opinionated the Podcast, Season 3. I am your host, Joshua Hicks, and across from me, as always, my brother from another mother, Ree Washington. And today, it's a Brothers to Brothers episode. To my right, we have my boy Dez, and to my far right, we have Flem. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
Great. Happy to be here, you know. It's been a good time so far kicking with you guys, man. Really.
Yes,
Thank you for the opportunity.
You blessed us in that first episode. Flem, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm all right, man. I'm happy to be here, excited. I was a little down because of the weather, but then I hate the gym, so I'm good right now. I'm in a
gym
good
got
place.
you right, huh? Yeah, to get in the
man.
gym move.
Yeah.
So, Flem, I mean, a lot of the fans, they got to hear Dez's story. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Elijah. I'm down from the South, from Savannah. 29 years old, single. I grew up country. My dad was 60 when he had me, and he was born in 1933. So like that dynamic is like different. I grew up like very old school,
like
traditional.
Old soul.
Yeah, old soul, and like I really feel
Church
like I
every
do have
Sunday.
bro.
Wednesday.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I do have old soul. So I like old music and stuff like that. But I like sports, play football, basketball, track, wrestling. Like to work out. I'm in the Air Force now. Been in 11 years. I'm probably about to get out actually, and try to cross over into the IT side of things, you know.
You say you had an old soul, so I just got to test you real quick. Al Green or Marvin Gaye?
That's a rough one, But hey, my old soul and my feelings, I love Al Green. I ain't gonna lie to you.
I would with Al Green too.
Hey, he be hitting them strings, man. I'm telling you, man.
All right, man. So like, guys, you know, you guys have both experience in the military. Just tell us about your experiences in the military.
You want to set it off?
Yeah, man. Where do you want to start? It's
And tell us a little bit of how you two actually got to meet.
I think the military is a great vehicle to get places for some people. And for some people, it's actually really good for them. And, like, that's the only thing they can kind of do in a sense because they probably wouldn't make it in the outside real world. But the military itself, I just read a meme post, and it's basically like the military is like 50% of the time, you're like, how do I get paid for this? And the other 50% of the time, you're like, I don't get paid enough for this shit, bro. That's literally the military and the sum of things, bro. Like, there's times where you're like, yo, I don't do nothing but sit on my butt all day and do nothing. And then there's times you're like, why do I not get paid more to do this, you know?
Right.
But I think the military is a really good vehicle. There's a bunch of careers that transfer over to the civilian sector that you can make a lot of money, get your certs off. You can travel a lot in the military if you get the job. Unfortunately, I didn't get that type of job, so I've been stuck in Missouri all my life. But yeah, and then my experiences, sheesh, I've had some good and I've had some bad, you know, and I think that comes with anything, and you have to kind of take that and use it and mold it and allow it to mold you and make you a better person. The bad experiences I've learned from, and I've learned a lot. I always kept my head down, though, you know, and try to do what I do best, and hard work is my main thing. It's like, hey, if I put the work in, it should show, you know, and that's always been my thing as far as the military goes. Like, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm capable of, and I won't let nobody tell me that I'm not working hard, I'm not busting my ass, I'm not doing the things that I need to be doing. But yeah, and I met Dez here, who is to my left, and you meet some great friends in the military. That's one thing I will say for sure.
How'd you guys come across each other?
We have the same job, actually. So we initially met on the flight line, and I remember my first day, and
They were staring at you like, what the hell you looking at? What the hell you looking at?
It's so funny. I remember first day meeting Flem, because Flem was on meds, I was on day shift, and we were on the same jet. So when you come into the Air Force as an aerospace mechanic and as a crew chief specifically, you get assigned to an aircraft. This is how the meta was when we came in. So it was Sergeant Hill. I forget who was below Sergeant Hill, but I think you were fourth or third wife, something like that.
Yeah.
And then Sergeant Hill looks at you and says, "Hey, you're responsible for training him." Me, who just got here, it's like my third day out here. You know, it's my third day.
Yes,
and then Flem looks at me and he's like, "Hey, don't fucking suck." And that was pretty much I was like the first thing he said to me. And I can't help being taken back a little bit. I was like, "You're just a little dickhead." And then I was like, "Cool, that's whatever. I don't really give a fuck anyway." And then we just got busy. And my second time meeting him was at our homeboy Josh's house, another lifelong friend.
Yeah.
Because he was living with them, and then it was kind of standoffish at first because I was like, you're trying to test people. You're like, well, I don't know really who he is, what his character's about. It's kind of hard to really place him right now. But then we had situation we had to go get something together, and then from there we became more comfortable with one another, and then our friendship grew and grew and grew, and then we have a bunch of deals and business ventures done together, and like we've made a lot of money together, and it's been cool ever since.
Right.
And Flem, like, tell us a little bit, like, you come from Savannah, Georgia. What road did you take to the military? How did you even end up in the military?
Man, I ended up in the military honestly, I would probably say shout out to my nephews. They're older than me, but shout out to them. Like, they were hard on me. My mom was also hard on me. Shout out to her. When you're young, you kind of look at those things, you're like, why are you so hard on me, you know? And you kind of see them be easy on other people maybe.
Right.
But now that I'm an adult, I actually appreciate those things. I appreciate the fact that they were like, hey, don't follow me. You know, my nephews, they were into illegal activities. You know, that was their thing. But they were all like, hey, you're not going to go down this path. Like, we won't let you go down this path. That's not what you're going to do. You're not going to follow us. And I think that was the big catalyst for me to, like, join the military, because I was like, hey, I want to get out of this small town. I was small town, you know. I'm like, I don't want to stay here. So I was like, I want to get out of this small town. And the military recruiter came our 11th grade year, actually. And I saw him on stage, and he was talking about traveling and paying for school. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to go to school, but I don't want to pay for school if I do go to school. And it just struck a nerve with me, and I was like, hey, I think I can do this. And right then and there, I went to the delayed entry program, which is where you basically go in your junior year, and then you have a job right at the end of your senior year. And literally, I graduated school. I had a month off for the summer, and I went to basic training like immediately right after that.
Just to touch base on, I think we all can contest to that. Like, you know, our parents or somebody who was in that role of showing us or paving a way for us, you know, at the early ages that, you know, these are the things you don't want to do, and these are the things you do want to do. But, you know, we're young at the time, and we don't understand it, you know. And for me, it's you have to put the feeling with it sometimes. You have to understand what they're talking about. So you have to go through those trials and tribulations and get hurt and have doors closed in your face and go through them heartbreaks. And, you know, you have to get to experience the good things as well, you know, the opportunities, and, you know, you feeling at your best right now. So I think that we all can contest to that, just grown men right now, you know, whether we old or not, you know, who's younger, who's older. So
Yeah, I can really agree with that, because I remember having a really deep conversation with my mom maybe a couple months ago, and just like, you can feel frustrated sometimes that, why wasn't I allowed to kind of do X, Y, and Z as a kid? But it's really your parents trying to protect you from things which overall, and maybe in the final analysis, aren't good for you, you know, because do these house parties and going to the mall and the fights and other bullshit that happens out there in the streets really matter? They don't. They really don't. You know, and because my mom kind of kept me from that, even to my own displeasure at times, it allowed me to flourish in environments like the military. I was able to get my security clearance and other things like that, which opens up so many doors for people, you know. So shout out to my mom for that. I probably owe her an apology on some level, because I was really upset at her at one point, you know, and I think she took it as like, hey, I did the best job I could as a parent, you know, and she took it as me criticizing her parenting skills overall, and that's not the way I wanted to come across.
But Josh and I have talked about that too. Like, they're doing the best they can with the circumstances that they've been given, or, you know, they put themselves in and stuff like that. We talked about that on prior episodes, and it's just like, bro, they are learning and going as we are learning and going, and they're trying their best to raise us, whether they wanted us or not. You know, some is playing, some is not. So
yeah, I think go ahead. I think the key word there is forbearance. You know, you have to have forgiveness for them, and because none of us has ever seen this before. It's all our first time experiencing all of this, and maybe it really, really won't stick until you have your own kids, and you're like, listen, there's no manual to come to this, especially as the world changes and shapes, because it's very, very dynamic, you know, and you can't raise your kids and maybe in the same meta you were raised in, because that world doesn't exist anymore. Right. So you have to prepare them for the future.
Right.
Because even like with my parents, I think they were like 23 and 25 when they had me. That was a whole different generation of like, you know, go to college, you know, get married to your spouse and, you know, build your family. But even me being 26 now and like thinking on that, I'm like, I'm just learning how to really take full care of myself and getting my things and prioritize and making money and all that. So I couldn't even imagine having a family and trying to raise it. So like kudos to, you know, my parents for being that young and like learning on a limb, but like they were like, hey, we got you, we prepared you for this world. But like now, like you just said, this is a different generation of like kids now. They have technology. Even that, like, if my parents didn't want to hold certain conversations with me, they can get away with that a little bit for like a year or two, where now it's like, oh, you don't want to talk about it? Okay, Mom, I'm going to go on my phone and my friends or somebody going to show me what this is. And it's like,
now you got to answer. You know, you got to tell me about it, because I done found out about it, you know.
And I think that's just part of having like the old soul, like you said, like, you know, we're a part of it, and then we also get the new school as well, because we're right in the smack dab middle of it. You know, and it's, to me, how do you guys balance having? Because I know you guys well enough. Like, how do you guys balance having that old soul, you know, battling, you know, against new ways, a new road?
For me, you take the good, because there's lessons and there's good in the past, but then you take what's not useful and let it burn off, you know, and then maybe you can move forward with an amalgamation of both, you know. Okay, the past has some lessons. We take the lessons so we don't repeat them, but then we also have to understand that what worked for them necessarily won't work for us. I think the cost of entry was significantly lower for a lot of our parents. Now these companies and jobs expect you to come with a lot more than just maybe hard work and work ethic, you know. Merit and results is what they want, you know. What have you been able to do so far? You have to put that on your resume now. You can't just be like, oh, I graduated college. It was like, well, what have you done? Have you worked on any projects? Have you interned? Have you done anything in your free time besides just go to school? No. You can find yourself at the bottom of a hiring pile really, really fast, you know. So yeah, I appreciate the old, but also accept some of the new and adapt to it.
And Flem, you want to touch?
Yeah, I agree with everything he just said. Yeah, and a lot of times I find myself battling with that a lot. Actually, it's like sometimes you just feel out of touch, because it's like you're like, I'm so old school, and like the way you guys move and do things is just, I don't necessarily agree with it so much, and a lot of times I have to kind of pull myself back and kind of look at it from their perspective, you know, and understand, like, hey, like, this isn't what you're used to. This isn't back then, you know, like, this isn't that no more. And you have to kind of, like you said, amalgamation of both, and kind of just move forward with the times and just try to keep up as much as you can, you know. But yeah, I agree with him on everything else about that.
I think it's almost becoming unrealistic, right? Because like you said, yeah, it hit us smack in the middle of our childhood, where it was like social media really didn't become a big thing until I was probably like 13, 14 years old. And even then I wasn't really on there until, like, you know, towards the end of high school. But even with relationships now, it's like I'm trying to look at mom and pops, and it's like, man, can I get that one day? Like, because you kind of take it for granted when you young. You like, man, mom and dad, they kind of weird or whatever. Like, they have their own dynamic.
Yeah, they love it, though.
Yeah, they have their own dynamic. And I'm sitting over there like, now, like, man, I hope I can be as happy and corny as they are when I was like 8 years old. Like, oh, my parents, they weird. They over there dancing, laughing with each other, and it's like, oh man, I'm 26 now. I want to find that, but again, social media is playing a card in it, and it's hard,
I think it's
man.
selfish, man. I think on accident, our parents birthed that through us. They wanted to give us everything they didn't have, so they did it. They made us selfish in a way, and then again, norms and stuff like that make us even more selfish. And then that's when, to me, I think it's the loyalty is out of the window. I think everybody's so loyal to themselves, and they don't cherish the relationships that you build with people, and the people around you, and how those would get you further than just having like we said off camera, like assets and money. You know what I'm saying? To me, I cherish the people who are around me. So
yeah. Do you think it's like a mixture of choice paralysis? Social media gives people so many options nowadays. It's hard to pick one because you're concerned that you might be missing out on something that's better.
Right.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I agree with you, because again, so what's social media for? To post your wins and your successes. So it's like I might see you there. You might be like, you might post something and it's like, oh dang, he just got a promotion at work. Okay, Flem next. Like, Flem, hey man, I just bought me a new car. Ree, like, man, I just bought me a new house. And now it's like, okay, you might have heard word from mouth, back in the day, like, okay, cool, but you're not seeing it. Now you just scrolling, you just see all these successes, and you're like, now you're looking at yourself in the mirror like, okay, maybe I'm not doing everything that I thought I was doing.
And I definitely agree. And when I sit back and think about it sometimes, like, just from like what I've experienced with my own self, like, why would I post my losses? Mm-hmm. Like, what's the point of posting them? To make you feel better about where
sorry
you're
to cut
at
you off. I'm gonna give it right back to you. But like, even if you do post your losses, people gonna look at you and say, "Oh man, you just want attention." Like, that's like,
yeah, and that's such a weird thing, man. Because I don't think people post their losses because they want attention. I think people post their losses because they're trying to keep it. Some people trying to keep it real. They're trying to make you understand, like, hey, everything ain't a win.
Exactly.
You're not gonna always be winning out here in this game called life.
Haters that are following you saying, "Oh man, he just want attention." It's like, it's fake, and it's like, nah, man, like, that's how I'm really feeling right now.
Well, I think there's a platform for all that, I think if you're going to post your losses, like career losses, right, people are more receptive and gives more positive vibes, I hate that word, but positive reactions if you post maybe like a loss on like LinkedIn, because everyone understands that, hey, it's super hard
Or
to
like
be out
Reddit
here.
or something like that. Yeah.
But people want maybe a more sanitized lifestyle on Instagram. So I think it depends on what platform you're talking to, what you should be posting and what you shouldn't be posting. You know, because we all use different social medias for different things. How I interact on Twitter versus how I interact on Instagram is really, really different. Doesn't mean I'm not the same person. You're just getting a different side of me.
Yep.
You know.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I don't take it to heart when I see people posting their wins or maybe flossing or flaunting, because I'm like, it's a sanitized lifestyle, and I try to have a good grasp on the envy, you know, that resides in all of us, you know, because like sometimes you're like, damn, I wish I was up there as well, but you just gotta keep your head down and running your own race. And that's why, like, I vibe with a bunch of that Kendrick Lamar album quite a bit, because the "Count Me Out" song resonates with me for that
I
reason.
played that for him in the car today.
You know?
That's Kendrick. I'm like,
Yeah, keep your head down and work harder,
Exactly.
you know, and then you shouldn't have time to look up and knows what everyone else is doing.
So how many sides of people do you think there truly are?
I think everybody's multifaceted, and there's various sides to everybody. Honestly, I don't think most people are just like a very one.
It's hard to sit up there and be like, I'm this one person all the time, because that's not going to be true. Like,
I'm gonna slightly backtrack on that
Okay, go
statement.
ahead.
I think there are, due to the way society is nowadays, I think there can be some people that maybe are very linear. I'm not gonna say they don't have different sides in them, but I just think they're very linear. They know only this lane and like how to be this way. They don't really care to be no other way outside of that. They know about it. They may have grown up and have experienced some different things, and understand like, hey, I have different sides or different hobbies and this, but they don't choose to explore those things. It's like, hey, this is the one thing that is like making me money, or this is the one thing that everybody likes about me, so I'm just gonna stay in this lane right here and go straight and try to be the best I can be at this, be this type of person.
A quick question, like, do you think like those are the people, like, from people outside looking in saying like, oh, they're small-minded because they're only going linear, or how would you explain that?
I think to explain it, I think it's kind of like being a master at one thing and being a master at none. So like some people want to be a jack of all trades, but a master at none. I want to know about this, that, this, that. I want to be good at this, that, but I don't want to be a master enough. And there's some people that are subject matter experts, and that's all they know. They can tell you the insides and outs of a plane. They can break it down to you. They can tell you about all the equipment on it. They can tell you about each system on it. And that's, I think you need a amalgamation of both to get by in the world. You need people who are good at like building bridges to just be good at building bridges. You don't really want them to be a welder, a plumber, like you know what I'm saying, like that. You're like, hey, build my bridge, and I expect you to be the best bridge builder that I've ever seen, and that's your job, to know how to build bridges, to make them safe for people. I wouldn't want you to know a bunch of other things, and I think lost track of my thought actually on that part right there.
I get what your point. You could be an expert in building bridges, but you can also dabble in maybe other creative endeavors. You just won't be the best at it, And it really depends on how many tools you want in your toolbox.
True.
Because I'm like, not every situation calls for a hammer, and if all you got is bigger or smaller hammers, it just doesn't make any sense, So I'm like, hey, it's tact. I think the word's tact. You need to have tact to bring to a variety of situations, because if you come with the same energy, you can make things which aren't a problem, and things that should be a conversation, an argument. So I'm like, well, have a lot of tools, and you're not necessarily being fake. You're just showing your personality in a different way. Maybe people aren't used to.
True.
Because we all have our own our work personality per se.
Oh yeah.
Like how I interact with people at work versus how I
Gotta be the
interact
code
with my
switch.
friends are
Gotta
very,
code
very different. So if you're able to code switch as a black person, are you being fake? I don't think so.
Just to touch base, and you sparked it like right when you said it, between conversation and argument. Like, why do you feel like people, like, when you having a conversation, they turn it into an argument?
I think some people think you're attacking them, but you're really attacking the idea. But I think the idea can be so intertwined with their personality that they can't differentiate the two, and I really need to be able to parse that out. Like, hey, it reminds me of a quote though. It's like, well, people don't have ideas have people. I've met people who are so gripped by an idea, it's almost indistinguishable between the two, them and the idea, and I think you're falling to what's called an ideologue. You're just the idea is living through you, breathing through you, but who are you?
Right. You shut everybody up with that one.
Yeah, he had me over here processing it, like, yeah, that's real. Like, off camera, we were talking about relationships. What are your viewpoints on relationships in the dating scene in 2022?
I think the dating scene is a little bit muddied right now because everyone's kind of waiting for the better. And I don't know necessarily if that is the best strategy for long-term, successful, happy relationships. I think everyone wants to see there's something better around the corner. And I don't think a lot of people exist in the gray zone where they do everything that you do in a relationship, but they don't commit. Because with commitment comes expectations, and people don't want to deal with the expectations that you can have with your partner. You know, because if you just...
But one thing I've witnessed, man, is, to be honest with you, is like people will put this expectation on you, but they don't even have to meet that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then it causes that conflict. Like, hold on, like, I don't mind doing these things. I don't mind bending my back a little bit. I don't mind going into that gray area. You know, everything's not black and white. Like, okay, cool. Like, let me take in consideration your feelings and your emotions and how you feel, what I do, how that makes you feel. X, Y, Z, but you aren't even reciprocating any of that.
Well, I think
or
that
you pick and choose what you want to get that same energy to, and then you bend on certain things.
Yeah, I think that gray zone exists where titles are absent, because the lack of titles means the lack of expectations. If you are my girlfriend, I can expect things from you. If you are if you have a boyfriend, you can expect things of your boyfriend. I think that's fair, you know. But where we live in this gray zone is like, well, at any point I could tell you you're not my girlfriend, and you shouldn't really expect shit of me anyways, you know. But if you're obligated to bend your back for me, you're obligated to help me out because we are in a relationship, and relationships are conflict by nature, you know, because you'd be extremely bored with a person who doesn't challenge you in certain ideas or push the envelope forward for you. I don't think that's what anyone wants. You know, you don't want someone who's just going to do what you say. You know, you want a partner to contend with to push you through the next level.
So my question is, why do people have a tendency to go towards the people that don't challenge them and question them? Because I find that a lot of times when I come across some women, they're like, hey, like, you challenge me in a way that I'm typically not used to being challenged. And I actually like that. Oh. But it's like, they say they like it, right? But I'm like, well, all the other dudes you dated, they were opposite of that. So, but why do you have a tendency to go towards that? Like, why do you have a tendency to run that way instead of knowing, hey, I want this right here, you know what I'm saying?
I have an interesting theory I've been entertaining, and I've centered the theory around the element of control. It's like, well, if you date an idiot, and you are the most educated person in the relationship, you can control the dynamics of the relationship. You have all the power, all the influence, and he's just a money-making servant for you. But if I can challenge your ideas and I could push back on something I don't think is intelligent, then you can't say you have 100% control in the relationship.
I do think it is control. I definitely think it is control. Now, the question that I've been wanting to ask you, just because I think you have a good perspective on it, is like, why do people, like, within relationships, or like primarily, like, why do they want you to deal with all of their moods? And if, you know, you have to deal with me when I'm this and this and this and that, and you have to accept me when I'm this and that.
I think the issue comes with people feeling like their partner has to accept everything they have to offer. I'm like, I don't deserve you at your worst, so I shouldn't accept you at your worst, and you deserve me at my worst, so I never give it to you. And it's because you are my partner, and I respect you, and I hold you in some type of reverence, that I should never give you the worst of me. Because do I really love you if I'm offering you the worst of me all the time, expecting you to take it?
No.
Because we're adults. I can control myself. I'm having a bad day. Hey, babe, give me a second. I'm really not up to this right now. I'll talk to you a little bit later when I'm calmed down, because I'm angry about something. I don't want to take it out on you. I don't have a problem with taking out my emotions on my partner. It's like, hey, I had a bad day at work. That work day has nothing to do with you, you know?
Communication.
You know, you never see me angry, snap.
Gotta be able to do that.
I'll never be snapping off from my partner because I had a bad day at work, a rough day at work, you know? I'm almost 30 years old. I can 100% control how I feel. I mean, not how I feel, but how I deal with my feelings, you know? And it's up to your partner to be receptive of that. If you have a partner who can't deal with the fact that you maybe need 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to relax and calm down before reattacking the issue, then maybe you guys aren't really equipped to go the long haul.
I think for me, it was more of just having that that want. You know what I mean? Like, you have to want that person. Not saying you need that person, right? Will be obviously, you know, everybody's had a heartbreak. They moved on. Like, so obviously the need isn't there, but that want for that person has to be there. Like, you have to be willing to accept that person at their lowest. You know what I'm saying? And be that backbone that they might need. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. But then at the same time, like, you have to also be willing to have that person at their best, and whatever comes with both. And then those, you know what I'm saying, that's black and white, right? But then you have to be able to deal with everything in the gray area, which is, you know, having to learn how to handle, you know, the miscommunications and build that foundation. And what I've experienced, bro, building that foundation is hard, because you're like digging up old roots that have been planted there for years, and, you know, past traumas and heartbreaks and whatever you want to say, just layering it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we talked on a prior episode, and she used that as like a laundry pile. You know, she's just throwing clothes and it's just building up, and that's just how I picture it. Like, you're digging up old roots to lay your foundation. That shit's hard.
Yeah,
you know?
I do think though, like in those situations, that people need to take the time to take a step back and work on themselves and take that laundry and organize it.
Wash that
like,
shit.
or just organize it at a minimum. Like put lights for lights,
Uh-huh.
darks for darks. Like get to the root cause of like, hey, maybe why this happened or that happened, or why I act this way, or why I'm receptive to only certain things and certain things I'm not receptive to. You need to. A lot of times I think people jump from relationship, and they don't ever take the time to step back and like look at the relationship and see like, okay, well, what went wrong? Where did I go wrong?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the people don't do that a lot. They just keep compounding, like you said, problem on top of problem, and every heartbreak on top of every heartbreak, and then that's how you get with the laundry. And then that's how I or somebody who come across you, we gotta dig through the laundry and we gotta lay a new foundation, because we gotta figure out all these problems that you already have over here that you're carrying forward, but you haven't taken the time to just stop and address those issues and address those problems and see from the root cause how to fix those things and how to move forward with your life and move on.
I have an interesting idea. So, like, when dealing with relationships and things like that, we have to discuss what our relationships built upon, what idea are they built upon on. And it may sound a little off, but I don't necessarily know if relationships are built on happiness. Happiness is a fleeting emotion. It's here one day, gone the next, you know? Maybe our relationship should be built on, like, hard work and compromise. You know, it's not a long-term marriage isn't a testament of happiness, because you're not happy all the time. You're not. What makes you happy at 21 doesn't make you happy at 23. Why do you expect that in your relationship? Sometimes it's going to ebb and flow. But maybe you can say like, hey, this is a testament to willpower. We have fought and struggled, and we have compromised and just had the hard discussions, and that's what our relationship is built on. We're not just built on happiness, because happiness doesn't sustain anybody for too long. It's a weak goal, in my opinion, you know, but that there's deeper meanings in happiness.
That's real. Like, you just, yeah, that's real, because a lot of people, like you say, happiness, it can come and go. And you do see, like, my parents have been married for 30 years. I'm not going to sit there and speak for them, but I know in 30 years, you don't mean to tell me that one year wasn't harder than the other one. So for them to be married that long, I do believe that they do have those hard conversations. Like when I was younger, I probably would not see it or hear it. Now that I'm a grown man, you can sit there and you can be like, oh yeah, she's mad about that situation. And my dad might go up there and be like, hey, you know, X, Y, and Z, hey, this is how. And it's like, oh, like you guys actually talked about it, y'all worked it out. And y'all compromise and understand, okay, hey, I might have been wrong in the situation. This is how I was feeling, but this is how we can continue to keep going on. Where I think now is like we're so young now, people don't want to talk about feelings. Guys don't want to be, you know, emotional, or, you know, women don't want to be wrong almost in a sense, because like women are like, hey, I don't need a man to do this for me. I don't need a provider. Like I could do the same thing. And it's like, nah, it's like it's okay to have a man who helps provides and all that. We both have our roles. And I think it's getting lost in blurred lines.
Let me get this one off. So just to kind of twist it, just if we can come back, you know, it's always it seems to be controversial. Like what the opposite sex trying to tell the opposite sex how to think, how to feel. You know what I'm saying? I see that a lot. I listen to podcasts and you hear it a lot on different social media platforms. Like, what are some ways that us men could better men? You know, instead of, you know, us talking, you know, upon the women and how they think, because ultimately we don't understand. You know what I'm saying? How as men, like, you know, anybody can answer, like, how can we help better the situation or things that we do or that we may bring to a relationship or just a friendship? How can we be better?
Well, in my observation, I often come across men who want to lead. They want to be in charge. They're the head of household. I don't think they're fully abreast or fully aware of what it means to be in charge. That means you put on your shoulders the entire success or failure of your family. That means everything is your fault. You want to be in charge, you got to put the cape on. You got to be a fucking superhero. And that means you got to have merit. If you don't have merit, you're not going to be in charge. And you're having issues why, like, hey, I can't get, my girlfriend's always arguing with me, she was fighting with me. And I'm just like, well, nigga, you have dumb ideas. And I'm like, and no one's going to follow you to hell. I'm like, your girlfriend's competent, and she's easily able to dissect your nonsense and how it would lead to the ruin of the family. I'm like, no, you have to be able to put results on the table. And I think some men actually hate that expectation, because it's clearly defined if you're able to produce or if you're not able to produce. You're not just in charge because you're a man. Make yourself competent, make yourself educated, read some books, you know, try some things, be a better person, aim at the good every day. And it's hard work. It's hard, you know, but that's why we idolize some of our favorite movie characters, some of our favorite men from history, is because they stood up when it was time to stand up.
Right.
That's being a better man. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I agree with him, and also holding your fellow men accountable. A lot of times we let things slide, you know, and I think a lot of times it's kind of like, hey, it's not my place, you know. But I think sometimes you need to intervene and just hold your fellow men accountable. Like me and all my friends, we all hold each other accountable. But iron sharpens iron, you know. And that's the saying that I live by. Like one another, we each sharpen each other. You know, I learn from you, you learn from me. You know what I'm saying? You correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not saying y'all do it in public. Probably do it in private, you know.
Right.
Because not everybody doesn't need to see that, you
Correct.
know. Exactly. But yeah, I think just definitely also holding accountable on top of what he said.
Josh?
Me personally, I agree with both of y'all, and then what Flem said, you know, holding each other accountable. Like, for instance, you and I, we talk about it all the time. Man, look, I can't surround myself around a man who doesn't take care of their kids and not say anything. Like, yeah, it might not be my place, but I could pull you to the side and be like, hey, bro, like, don't you think you might need to go see your kid, or you might need to, you know, pay the child support, whatever the case is. Like, hey, bro, you got to step up as a man, because if I'm allowing you and we boys and we out every weekend and everybody knows, like, hey, buddy, with you at the bar spending $300 every weekend or whatever the case is, but he can't even get his kid a haircut, it's like, dang, they going to look at me the same way, like, oh, you allow that type of stuff to be around you, so you must be that type of man. So I definitely think accountability is something that's key.
There's an interesting quote that popped in my head when you were saying that, and it was like, if a man show a flaw, know that flaw truly exists, you know? So I'm like, if you're not willing to take care of your seed, you damn sure not going to be able to take care of me.
Yeah,
like,
you
you
don't
willing
have
to
my
snake
back,
me,
you
you ain't
know
got
what
my
I'm
back,
saying?
you know?
Exactly, bro. I
I'm
can't
like,
trust you.
that's the closest person to you. That is you. That is your kin, you know? And you're not going to look out for him? That's way too big of a flaw for me to overlook.
Do you think flaws are just unconditioned characteristics that haven't been shaped, molded?
I think a flaw, depending on how we're going to frame it, could be a successive choices. Like, hey, these are things you choose to do time and time again when push comes to shove. This is a part of your character, you know, and we could talk about it and maybe we can move through it. You can accept a person for that flaw if they're not willing to work on it, or you can leave the table. And those are the options you have, you know. It's a lot to ask someone to change a flaw, especially if it's deeply ingrained in them. And then what do you know about what's best for someone anyways? So I'm like, what do I know about changing someone? You got to be very careful when you try to change someone, because you don't know what's best for them anyways. There's a reason that flaw kind of came about, you know. It was
Or what
useful
if you
at
try
one
to
point.
change them and then you actually see, like, this is what they were trying to change from, or this is the way they acted, or this flaw is stemming from not trying to be like this. And then you trying to change somebody, and then you see the total opposite of that person.
What do you mean, in a positive way or a negative way?
It could be negative. Well, I was speaking from, like, you know, this flaw is like the better of two options.
But I think you just have to understand where that flaw is stemming from, right? Like, I can't sit up there, Ree, if you have trust issues, I can't sit up there and be like, hey, man, you got to trust me, bro. It's like, but I don't know where that root stem from. That could be something from the childhood. So if I understand where it's coming from, okay, maybe now I can speak on it. But if if you and I never sit man to man across from each other and hold that conversation, who am I to sit up there and give you that advice? Because I don't know where it came from.
And there's a saying, don't throw stones in a glass house. Who am I? I got to be one arrogant son of a bitch to be like, hey, I could fix your flaws when I have so much to work on for myself.
Right.
You know, so I'm like, I would leave you to your own vices and trust that you will try to make yourself a little bit better every day, you know? And, you know, progress repeated daily is unstoppable. You know, just a little bit better every day is unstoppable. So, and if you don't want to do it, you can stay at the area you're at, in the zone you're at. But I can't help you because I'm still working on myself.
But to back to his point, I see what you're saying that, because that's typically what happens when people get in relationships. A lot of times is they're out seeking, like, it's weird, but some people are out seeking to help. It's like, hey, I can fix you, I can change you, I can figure it out, and it's like you said, it's like, well, how do you diagnose like that flaw? Like, how do you? And it's also what you saying, like, that you got to be arrogant to want to be like, hey, I can fix you, I can figure out what it is that caused you to be that way, and I can change it and make you what I want you to be, or a better person.
Because you have to ask yourself in a serious way, what do you know about what's best for me? You don't even know what's best for yourself.
But then and I ain't trying to get you up, and then you trying to fix them makes it worse.
Makes it worse.
Yep.
Exactly. That's typically what
And
happens.
now they come back and they resent you because you're like, man, look, you open up a wound that ain't even need to be open.
It's like
you
Pandora's
also
box.
you also steal something from them. You steal from them the process which needs to be figured out to fix themselves
by themselves.
Yeah, you robbed that from them, you know. And I was listening to a psychologist talking. He was like, well, you don't suggest ideas to your patients, and I could be misquoting it, but like, you allow them to kind of figure it out on their own and come to a conclusion on their own, because you can steal the process from them, you know. And then whether they're going to come to you every time they have a problem when the process needs to be fixed, you're just new to their adult, you know. They have to go through the trials and tribulations like you did. None of us got to this point by having someone come in and fix our problems for us.
Absolutely
Yeah,
not.
it was a conscious, active choice to become better, and they have to get to that point. Otherwise, they'll stay in squalor, they'll stay in hell. There's a quote out there that says, "Hell's an ever-deepening pit," you know, and why is it an ever-deepening pit? Because hell is metaphysical. That means you carry it with you wherever you go. If you have really fucked up characteristics or traits, no matter where I put you, you will create hell wherever you go. You'll never be able to escape it.
Like death follows you.
Everywhere you go, you know. And so you have to make the conscious choice to get out of hell, to get out of purgatory, to make your life better.
So to spin it, so, you know, how can we better, you know, when it comes to being the opposite sex? How can we not fix it, right? Can't fix anything, but how can we help better, you know, the miscommunications, you know, the things that, you know, we both experience, you know, on both ends, from a man's point of view speaking, like how can we help better that between a woman?
Truth. I think a lot of people don't tell each other the truth, so they're afraid to really expose themselves because you're afraid your partner won't accept you if you show them everything you are. And you don't even know she could love you more if you would just like take that part of you that you're hiding and let it come to light and let it actually be developed, you know? It's like integrating your shadow. Every part of you needs to be integrated for you to be loved truly, because you're hiding things from yourself, you know? You're like an incomplete person.
And I think men, just in general, we've been through it where we have to learn how to let things go because we've been through it, and, you know, we've told a girl something and they used it against us. Or you've said something to her and she brings it back and she twists it, or she uses it in the time that it's probably not needed, you know, to benefit what, you know, the argument is or the debate. So I think we need to learn how to be open and be vulnerable and you know, put yourself back out there. I mean, you never know if you're going to get hurt, but that's something that you have to be willing. But like, you know, Josh and I spoke on part, like you're learning something from each and every single one of those, you know, relationships that you put yourself in. So you date so-and-so, but you learn from so-and-so. So your next endeavor and the next relationship you look for, you're like, you know what, like if they show me signs like this, I'm not really too fond of that. I'm going to pass because the red flag done popped up and I done caught it beforehand. Or also what I've experienced is, man, like, you know, I've gave red flags unintentionally. And vice versa. Like, it's just something that I was embedded in, I was used to doing it. You had to get out of those habits as well. So for me, it's just, you know, learning how to break bad habits or get rid of, you know, things that you used to do because you now need to set forth what you want.
I think it's important for individuals to have a good relationship with trust. I think as we get older and we take our lumps and our scars, we start to view trust as a form of being naive, but really it's an act of courage. It's an act of courage to trust someone. You know, like, hey, I'm going to show myself to you, you're going to show yourself to me, and I'm going to trust and hope that you don't weaponize it and use it against me. But if you keep seeing as like trusting people as being naive, then you'll never be able to make that next step forward to having those long-lasting, loving relationships.
Yeah.
And back to what you were saying, I think it's brave to step back out and to be vulnerable and allow yourself to love again. Like, that's a brave thing to do because you know there's a possibility that I could get hurt again. But you're willing to take that and be like, hey, I'm going to try it again anyways, even though I know there's a possibility, because there's something beautiful on the other end that can come to fruition if I really just allow it to be.
And gentlemen, I mean, I think we've hit some topics that, you know, most men don't usually sit down and hold conversations like this. And I mean, I've learned from you guys. I mean, I just met you all, but I've learned a lot, especially from you, man. You know, we had you on 2 episodes, and it's like, man, okay, like, you know what, maybe I ain't crazy the way I think about certain things. Like, somebody is thinking the way I'm thinking. But, you know, just to wrap it up, you know, I want to say, you know, this was a great Brothers to Brothers episode. Ree and I, this is something that we hold close to our heart because there's nothing like sitting at a round table with, you know, 4 individual black men who are successful doing what they do best and, you know, shedding positive light into one another and not just, you know, tearing each other down. But with that being said, he's Ree Washington. I go by the name of Joshua Hicks. This wraps up another great episode of Opinionated the Podcast, Season 3. Love, always. Life is about consistency. Understanding it's the work that you do in private that's praised in public. You can't expect others to appreciate your vision if they never saw the blueprint. Your success will be judged and ridiculed by others who simply lost sight of their own dream. This week, recognize everyone won't like you, but that's okay because you don't like everyone either. As always, CeeLo.